Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Meghan Ens on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Saskatchewan, Canada, which, Saskatchewan, I'll say that as many times as I want just because I absolutely love the name. But Meghan is a bodybuilder coming on the podcast here to, share her bodybuilding journey with everyone and, just really discuss all things about the sport. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Meghan, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm not even going to ask what the weather's like because, I'm just too depressed right now to even think about it right now because it's snowing
Yeah.
outside right now. It's single digits. So before, that's usually my icebreaker, but I won't do that now. Why don't you just to start us off now, just give us your backstory to start off on how you got to where you're at right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's actually a lot simpler than probably most stories, but I was a late bloomer at 22 years old. I um, basically just fell into a job at Good Life Fitness, and I think a good chunk of people know that gym. Well, it's a Canadian gym, but it's probably the number one corporate gym anyway. Fell into a job there, and then as a mandatory piece of the job that we had to fulfill is three personal training sessions with one of the personal trainers. So I did, and I joined in with a couple guys, and I was the only girl in the group and whatever. So I was like, okay, well, let's do this, whatever. So I started doing it, and I've kind of always been an athlete, but it was more sport and athletic oriented rather than bodybuilding. So then, basically, as soon as those personal training sessions were up, I was like, hey, like I like this. So then, after that, I just kind of stayed with it, and then I found myself my first coach, who is now like my fitness mom, and we were together for about a year, and then I had the it's still like the best thing that could have happened to me. I got a job at a supplement company, and it was super awesome. Loved the job. I was one of the only females again, and it was just really good vibe, bro time, and whatnot. But then we were holding seminars with supplement companies, and they would bring athletes, and one of them was Ian Valier, and he basically pointed me out at the table while we were eating. I still love telling this story. Everybody was eating their food because we were going through an ANS seminar when he was an ANS athlete, and he looks at me and he goes, what do you like? Aren't you gonna eat dinner? And I was like, no, like I'm actually prepping for my first competition because I was getting ready to finally compete for the first time. I shouldn't say finally, it was only like a year. But anyway, so then I was like, yeah, like I'm getting ready to like prep and I'm gotta eat my meal and whatever. And he said, that's awesome. He's like, good for you. That's awesome that you bring your food here and whatever. Then afterwards, we just kind of like clicked after. I was fangirling so hard. I was like, holy guy's talking to me. I was such a big fan. Like he's big Canadian bodybuilder and IFBB Pro Olympian. He's one of the best in the world. I think he was top 7. But anyway, so then after that, we went and trained at my gym in Martinsville, small town right outside of Saskatchewan. And we trained then, and he was pointing me out again. He said, well, like, you doing cardio after? And he was pointing out some of the stuff I was lifting, and it was just instant vibe. We actually kept in touch afterwards. I was one of the only ones that he tossed a follow back when he was here out of all of the people in the province I think there's 2 of us. Anyway, so then he tossed me a follow back and I was freaking out. I was like taking screenshots, sending it to my buddies. I was like, whoa, like Ian followed me back. Like this is sick. And then shortly after that, I asked him for his help because things were just it was kind of I don't know, things were just not clicking very right for me. Couldn't figure out some stuff, digestion and training and whatnot. And I reached out to Ian. I said, hey, would you be interested in having me on as a client? And he was like, I would be honored. Still in text because that was an awesome day made. After that, it was all up from there. I started training with Ian and been with him since. And it's been, 2.5 years now that I've been with him. Went with my first show. And yeah, like we're still going hard.
When you were getting started, so many people have so many misconceptions about the sport of bodybuilding just
Oh,
because most people don't know that much about the sport. Was there anything that you had any concerns about before you got into the bodybuilding lifestyle, or is it one of those things where you just want to dive right in and see what happens?
Oh man, there was not a concern in the world. I didn't think about any consequences. I didn't think about any ifs or buts, nothing. It was, hey, we're going into this and we're doing it the best we can.
And I mean, going into it too, I mean, what was probably the biggest shock that you learned about the sport of bodybuilding when you first started getting into it?
The biggest shock would probably be two of them was food being the most anabolic compound in the entire world ever. And two, how important nutrition is. They used to say it's 60-40, and I call it is easily 80 or 90 and 10-20.
Yeah. What were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made? Because I mean, that is like you said, like abs are made in the kitchen, and that is like so many people do not understand that eating. I mean, not even working out, just eating right can do so much for you.
Oh yeah, 100%. The big well, when I first started, I ate like an animal. Like I would get I was a university student, like I would eat what I could some of the times. Like some days you're like, oh shit, I got $2 in my bank account. Like what am I gonna do? But yeah, no, like I would get up and I'd eat a bag of chips at like 1 p.m. That being like my first thing that goes into my stomach.
Ah, the
I would
college years. Oh yeah.
and then, being Canadian, the classic breakfast was Tim's and a cigarette, but I didn't do the cigarette part. You
No moose steak.
just no, that's like special. That's for special
Yeah.
occasions.
Oh yeah. That's like if someone's getting married or engaged or pregnant, you're just like, congratulations, here's your moose steak. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just yeah, I mean, there's so much the nutrition aspect is so under talked about and it's just absolutely ridiculous. Did your body take a while to sort of get used to that? Because I know just making those changes, the body's gonna react to it, and most people aren't aware of that ahead of time. That like your body, if it's not used to something, especially like eating a lot of new different things, you might not get the best reactions out of your body.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't as much the body as it was the mind. It was mostly the mind shock and the shock to your mindset rather than it being to your body. My body felt awesome. I felt like a machine. But when it got down to like, holy, this is my meal. I can't eat anything outside of this. This is my portion size. This is what I have to do. I can't go and have a cheesecake or something for dessert after. Actually, cookies. Cookies are my cookies and candies. I would always snack on candies. So when it got down to first starting, I'm just like, wow, this sucks.
Yeah. No, that's and that yeah, the mental and this is so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport too. And most people do not understand that, especially getting into it. That, I mean, obviously people are gonna notice the changes that you make physically and they'll say, like, oh my God, Megan, you look amazing. And but they don't notice that mental change that happens as well. What has this journey been like for you mentally?
Oh, honestly, it's been there were some really low lows and some really really high highs. Like when it got down to we can first cycle back to my first off season. Watching your body blow up like that after eating food and training and doing everything to the book, but yet you're watching the scale go up and you're watching your clothes aren't fitting and you got to go shopping. It hit me hard the first time. Like it was hard to do. I was constantly texting my coach and complaining, I'm fat, I look like a sack, like this sucks. And then they fight with yourself. It's kind of like, okay, you got to follow this plan, which was easy. Following the plan was easy, but more so maybe following through, it was tough. Like it takes you to a place like you need to really gear your headspace into in it to win it 100% or nothing. Like it was like there was no room for anything else. But yeah, lots of high highs. Like when I stepped on stage that first time, I've never felt more happy, excited, beautiful, just like a total muscle Barbie in my entire life. But then when you go and you get into your off season, you're just like, oh man, I'm
There's
sweating.
like, don't look at me, everyone, and
Yeah,
stuff like
don't even look
that.
at me. I am warming up by tying my shoes. I am sweating.
I've always said the worst, the biggest insult you can ever give a bodybuilder in their off season is just going up to him and saying, "Oh, so you stopped competing?"
I never got that actually. I've never got that yet. Oh yeah, when it gets down to that, it's like, yikes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's turn the dial it
If anyone who
back.
knows her wants to ever just like stab her in the back, that's just go up to her and just whisper it behind her ear or whatever like that when she's working out one time and just be like, "Oh yeah," or the proverbial looking a little small today, and then just turn and walk away without saying anything.
There's been a few times I got called small, and it's just like, "Oh, my little Megan." I'm like, "What'd you just call me?"
Well, see, I'm 6'3", so like everyone that I've had on this podcast is small, really compared. I have had another 6-footer on here, but that's just first of all the 6-footers. I have the most respect for all the bodybuilders, but especially the people that are super tall that have that super long bodies. I mean, getting into the genetic section of this topic, I mean, I love to talk genetics because everybody's on social media, and I hear this all the time. Oh my god, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back, and it's just want to strangle them and just be like, you do not understand that you can train just like them and eat just like them. You will not get the same results just because everyone's born differently. But everyone always has that one body part when they first get started that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And then everyone always has that one body part that just drags behind it. They have to train to oblivion. What were those body parts for you?
Oh man, and it's always the I always get chewed apart for this. So if anybody's watching this podcast, I mean, okay, to be honest, everybody, yes, you're right. Everybody's got their spot, and it's usually the spot that you have that everybody else wants that you don't necessarily want, and you want something else. So it's not, there's never a mediocre.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I ask this question to every guest that I have on, and I always get a somewhat similar answer where they're like, if they're like, "Oh yeah, my arms really took off," and I was like, "Okay, the gym bro in me is like, okay, awesome," but then they're like, "Oh, but I'm a figure competitor, so it doesn't really." It's always something like that, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm going to get chewed apart for saying this, but the thing that took off that I'm actually still fighting with right now were my glutes. Glutes were the first thing to blow up, and it could have been from being
Get the hell off my podcast right now.
that could have been the first, like the reason that being is because I was a competitive volleyball player.
Oh
So
yeah.
like I got scholarships in the States, and I was actually a good volleyball player, but then I ended up hurting my, well, whatever tendon it was in my one leg, and I didn't really rebound from that properly. But anyway, so my glutes took off. Yay. It was awesome. But anyway, so that part took off, but right now I'm like, as a figure competitor, I'm fighting to balance, and because you have to be proportionate in this sport. So I've been fighting to match my upper body to my lower body because when I first started, I was a pear. Like it was like small up here and fat bottom, like just that's just how it happened. But anyway, yeah, like I'm fighting for bigger shoulders and bigger back. We also determined that was my downfall. My first show was the conditioning was on point. It's just we need to grow. There's more. We need to have more growth, which is probably the answer everybody gives. But
I mean, and that's the funny thing, because like I've had Andrea Shaw, Miss Olympia, on, and she was talking about growing too, and it's like, why? Why? You already won. Like if you just stay. I mean, that's the thing about bodybuilding too. That also it drives me crazy, but it's inspiring too. Is like you always want more. Where it's like you can talk to the winners, and then they're like, I want to come back bigger and better. It's like, again, why? Like you,
yeah,
it's just yeah. Hey, that's that athletic drive, and I mean, I used to have that for sports myself, so I understand it a little bit. And I mean, on top of just the genetic thing too, I mean, one thing that I love to bust on this podcast, every single podcast that I do, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there are still so many women that have that fear that, if they walk into the gym and they even look at a dumbbell, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And, first of all, like I said a million times, I will give you my entire life savings if that happened to you. I might actually kidnap you and like try to like swap genes with you or something like that, like do some gene therapy or something. I don't know, but that's like, if that ever does happen to you, you are the first probably ever trillionaire that's ever going to live. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time today. How do you like to respond to that?
oh man, I love my response to that. But first I'll rewind. When I first touched a dumbbell, that was my hope, that I would just blow up like a balloon. Like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build, and I wanted to grow, and I wanted to get big. My a prime example, or the best thing to back that up, was my transfer to my coach. Was the question is, I want to be built like a dot dot dot. The answer was truck. Like it was like I want to be huge. I just want to be this biggest thing. But anyway, I used to serve. I used to be a server before have my career now. And they would always ask me. Everybody would be like, "Oh, Megan, like you look great," but like I wouldn't want to ever get like that or be that big or have like that, whatever. And so, like, so I don't train too heavy
Well, no,
because
no,
it's,
no. Here's your response, and you're like, well, you better be careful because I've only just done serving my entire life.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, there's that bulky word. I don't want you to
Yeah.
get bulky, and I'm
Mhm.
like, so my answer every time is if you knew how hard you had to work to get like this, you'd never make it. You would never get there. It's like people don't understand the amount of work to put this kind of size on and how much it takes. A good 3/4 or maybe even pushing more don't even work this hard or that hard to train or like to train that heavy and to train in reps and to be consistent with it and then to eat the food to grow that big. A lot of these people, they don't even eat properly enough to grow that big. So the training therefore sometimes isn't even, it's irrelevant almost sometimes. But like you kind of get what I mean. Like it's just the people don't understand how hard it is that you have to work to get like this. So if they knew, they'd be like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go do my kickbacks at 20 pounds instead of 5, in the fear of being whatever, or whatever it is." But yeah, like that's my response to it. It's just like if you knew how hard I had to bust my ass to do this.
Well, and I do have to add a disclaimer. That's why I hate those stupid one percenters more than anything else. I know one of them where they could literally eat 10 Snickers bars a day and they won't gain an ounce of fat and they're just still jacked. And it's like, I hope God's playing a cruel joke on them and, they just wake up 400 pounds one day. But, unfortunately that hasn't happened. But I do have to admit to people that, yes, there are probably about a couple hundred of them in the general population that you might find where they're just the most genetically blessed people on the planet where they do literally work out maybe once a week at that and they still look super in shape. They're not bodybuilder in shape, but like you would think that like, oh my God, I do have to admit that they do exist and, shun these people, maybe stone them to death next time you see them. I don't know. We need to get rid of them because they're bringing everyone else down. But yeah, I mean just yeah, the dedication and the hard work that this sport requires is just so undervalued and that's why like I always tell people especially in, our generation. I mean, I'm 27 and like if you're going to do this, you're not going to see results overnight. And I mean, it's like you can't. This isn't one of those sports where if you want everything now and you want it yesterday, I mean, it's just not going to work out for you. So that adds me, even more to the respect that I have for the competitors. Is that all the stuff that they go through, knowing that like, hey, you're only going to make incremental gains, really,
Yeah.
at a time. Like some of these people think that like, oh, they just must put on like 20, 30 pounds of muscle in a year, and it's like, well, if you're injecting pure like horse steroids and stuff like that, then maybe, but otherwise, it's not going to be like, even for men, it's not going to be, that significant of a gains. It's little by little that you chip away. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
just the long run that a lot of people have, and a lot of people like. It takes a long time for these people to develop, and it's one of these sports where the older you are, the better off you are usually in the sport, and it's very rare. But I mean, getting into competitions, I mean, there's a difference between working out. Okay, first of all, we heard you snap. What's your dog? What kind of dog do you have, and what's its name?
I got a dog running around. Yeah, there's some talking too. I was like, is it? I'm
No
just
problem. What
saying.
kind of dog do you have, and what's its name?
She is a border collie, and her name is Annie.
See, we have a little Cavachon that your dog would step on and kill, but I
Oh
mean,
no, not this dog. She is like not even a dog. She's like I don't even know. She would love the belly rubs and laying down and cuddles and stuff. But when it comes to doing dog stuff, it's like
so border collies, are they really as smart as everyone says that they are?
oh, she's smart, but I mean, I don't know. She's getting old, so it's
Yeah.
like she's just kind of chilling.
I've always told people it's like if I could ever be reborn or if that's ever a thing, just make me a dog that lives in a good house. Just have to worry about crapping, eating, and going to sleep. That's a good life right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so that's awesome. See, and I'm making a compilation of when all the dogs and cats and stuff are on the podcast. I'm a huge animal lover, but getting back into the bodybuilding, I mean, when you're first getting started, I mean, there's a huge difference between working out and going on stage in a bikini and posing. What was that like mentally, sort of preparing yourself for that? Because I mean, it's like if it wasn't for like going on stage and posing and being like in a bikini or like in a thong for the guys, there'd be probably about 100 times more bodybuilders.
Oh, 100%. Well, like it comes down to that phrase, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And it is, oh, there's not 1 ounce of that was easy, not even a little bit. So posing in itself is incredibly fatiguing because you are holding that which feels like for days. And then to top it off, okay, so like the experience I had was I my glutes never really like they were big. And what happened was is when my I went and got fitted for my suit, it the cut of the suit wasn't quite right. It was to standard, but it was just too much for the amount of glute that I had. So basically, I had a situation where it wanted to rise, and I'm like, you know what? I just gotta go with the flow, like whatever. Being the bikini wasn't like an issue. I mean, honestly, when you're that shredded, you pretty much just feel like a trophy anyway. You're just like, you know what? Yeah, let's flex and just let's put it on stage. But
Well, the
yeah,
only thing with the guys that like those songs that they wear, they leave nothing to the imagination. Which I mean, it's
no,
like, it's like I mean, and women do have a complaint sometimes about some of the like some of what they wear. But then I always bring up, I was like, dude, the guys, you see everything. Like, there's nothing left to the imagination, really. So
no,
yeah,
everything,
yeah,
everything.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, but yeah, I mean, with posing too, I mean, that is just something that a lot of people don't understand. That is the hardest thing for so many of these guests of the lifestyle. What was that journey like for you? Because I mean, that is like you said, holding those poses. Most people don't understand that the human body is not meant to do that.
Oh, honestly, in my off season, I'll sweat while I go to do my check-in. Like, and that's just posing for the 10 seconds that you set up your camera and you're waiting for the photo to take. But when it got down to getting ready for the show, you were posing. Oh, gee, well, I was. I don't know about anybody else, but I was posing every single day, and I was posing like I would put in like a few, like, or I shouldn't say a few. Like it was like half hour to an hour every single day just working through the poses, and even on the day of the show I still didn't get it right. Like it was like, oh, you go and you look back at those pictures, you're just like, I practiced that for so long and it didn't work out and whatever. So like that's one thing I'm really focusing on this prep now, is like making sure I am hitting those poses properly, because that is so important. If you can't flex it right, it just does it. It's gonna cost you placing. It's gonna cost you your pictures. It can cost you everything really.
And I mean, that lat spread is the number one thing that figure compares I talk about is the hardest thing. And, you know, being a guy, I've never really had to learn. But like so many people, I've had guests on here that's taken them years to be able to even do it. And then, you know, I have that one freak who's like, yeah, I did it like within like a month. And I was like, okay, whatever. Just go fall off a cliff or something like that. But
That lat spread was the first thing I was able to hit. Like when I started posing, that lat, it was so easy. And that's actually how I got determined to be a figure competitor. When my fit mom, she's like, "Okay, just hit a few poses for me." So I went and I just like I started doing stuff, and she's like, "Oh, you're a figure competitor, because if you can hit that already and shoot that pose," she's like, "This will be a breeze." So the lat, my front and back poses were my absolute strengths, because I could flex those lats no problem. I could, you know how dudes make their pecs bounce? I can do that with my lats. Like it's
wait,
like
what?
the mind muscle connection. I can do it just sitting here flexing my lats.
Okay, next time we're gonna have you on during prep, and you're gonna have to show that to us then, because
I know.
I've never seen anyone do that.
Oh yeah, like I used to do it a lot when I would stand there at the Smith machine and just put my and I just start flexing my lats. Just oh yeah, it was good. But it's those quarter turns. Quarter turns where I suffer.
So let me get this straight. Your legs are very well taken off, and you learn the front pose without really even blinking. So what is there? What was your biggest? I want to hear. I want to see. I want to hear about a struggle that you've done then to make myself feel better.
The struggle was definitely the quarter turns. Those I didn't matter what I did, but when I got Ian on the phone, I was like, "Hey, like this is where I'm struggling." And like even the day of the show, he's like, "I need you to do this. I need you to do this." I'm just like, "Dude, like I literally don't know what to do." And it's just like it was hard. Like those quarter turns were tough. But they ended up showing up well because I was conditioned. But anyway, that was the biggest, like the hardest thing. Other than during the prep, it was just trying to grow my upper body to match. That part sucked, man.
I'm just right now. I'm just trying to do the thing with the lats. How the hell do you do that with your lat? Like I can't even do. Like I can do a little bit. I can do a little bit with my chest, but like how the hell do you do that? Like I can't.
I don't know. It's just like I can sit here and just like flex my lats back and forth.
Well, like I said, we're gonna have her on next time when she's like right about to compete. Then basically sometime later on, and
I
she'll do it. I mean, Jesus, but yeah, yeah, that'll be a sight to see. But I mean, hey, that's a good talent to have. Everyone on here seems to have a certain talent with some things, and hey, that is I guess yours. And I mean, what's that moment like for you when you get to walk up on that stage after months upon months of being on prep? Where like it's like let's be honest, preps are not fun. They're not. So what's that moment like for you when you finally get to walk up on that stage and show off all that hard work?
if the prep's fun, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Really,
Or
is
you're a psychopath and I'll drive you to an insane asylum then, yeah.
and you're sick. I mean, you gotta be a psychopath to an extent, but like a real psychopath if you enjoy suffering that much.
Mhm.
But anyway, when I remember getting and they called my name, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like this is it. This is what I've been freaking working for. And I got up there, and I kid you not, that smile did not come down. My face was still hurting the next day. Like I was so pumped. I got a lot of bodybuilders on my Instagram that I follow and I love and admire. And one of them is Michaela Acock, and
Oh, yep.
she got a sick pose at her Olympia pointing at her mom, and she just went and pointed, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna do that. Like I gotta do that. So I pointed, and I was so happy, and that grin, it did not leave. Like I was so happy.
She's the one where I look at and I'm just like, "How the hell does she look like that when she's that young?" I've tried to get her on the podcast. I might have her on eventually, but I've been trying to get her on, so we'll see. But, yeah, yeah, I just don't understand that, like, at that age too, because like, that is absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, she definitely, has a big future there, but, I mean,
Oh yeah.
we're talking about now post-show now. What is your favorite thing to eat after the show?
Oh, I'm a shop vac. Like I'll eat anything. Like I'll eat. Yeah, like I'm not picky at all. So when it comes down to post show, I just stick with classics. I am very much. I got my mindset like my coach. He would do chicken and rice, which I was like, hey, no, I'm not doing that. But I
What
was
the
like,
hell's wrong with him? Chicken and rice after a show?
he'll do chicken and rice or like something like that. Like he won't. He's not really food crazy.
He
But
deserves bad things to happen to him if that's what he's doing.
but yeah, a post show, we did the classic burger and fries. We found this burger joint that did like these specialty burgers. We had a mac and cheese burger. So I did a burger and a half because we split one, and then I had fries. We had nachos, and it was just a big like it was a beautified burger and fries cheap meal. It was good.
Oh, that sounds great. But speaking of food, so what was your reaction like the first time that you looked at your bill of like all the chicken and stuff that you're gonna have to buy and just realize that this is a lot more expensive than before? Because I remember even me when I first started like getting really serious in shape and I was eating chicken a lot and rice a lot. When I was looking at that bill, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. The grocery bill is big. It's bigger in the off season, but it's smaller in the on or in the like when you're in prep. So there's balance there. But other than that, no. I mean, to be honest, I was spending less. To be like, if I'm being completely honest, if you take into account, the garbage food, sure, it's cheaper. But then you have that leniency where you go and you eat out more on the weekend, or you go and you get skipped or you go and you order stuff to your door or whatever it was. It was like, oh, okay, I feel like having this day, which could have been, going to a fancy restaurant eating a meal, which you do not do I don't do as a bodybuilder. I don't go and do that stuff. So this actually ended up being cheaper.
Well, I mean, we are recording this on close to Super Bowl weekend, so there's a reason I took Monday off, because I'm gonna be feeling her pretty good on Sunday night. So
Oh yeah.
there's excuse for that. So how do you deal with holidays? Because some people, their schedules just turn out perfect, where like they're off before. I know Canadians have Thanksgiving on a different day, and than Americans do, but like around the holiday season, a lot of guests I've had on just don't even compete in there. But how do you deal with the holidays, especially even if you're in season or even if you're not?
Yeah, it's a good question. Prime example is I'm always in prep for my birthday. I have not been out for my birthday for or had Easter because my birthday falls around Easter. And the thing I do for stuff like that is I'll always eat before I go. I always make sure that I eat or I have a meal and I have a meal ready to go to bring so that in case like okay that 2 hour mark's coming and I'm starving or whatever it is and I just pound that meal back. But when it comes down to stuff like that, you just basically have to shut it off. You shut it off in your head. You gotta. It's kind of like an ignoring game when it comes down to that stuff. I'll bring like a we have diet jellos. I don't know if you guys have diet jellos. Okay, so we have diet jellos. You guys have pop. I don't even want to hear it. You guys have bangs and you have pop, and that is like anyway, conversation for another day. But yeah,
Well,
diet.
don't worry, we'll get into the milk and bags kind of thing. What the hell that is? You freaking freaks up there! What the hell are you doing up there?
Oh man, we're not with it though. Our country's falling.
Well, yeah, we'll get into. Hey, that's an after dark podcast thing. Believe me, I think that too. But hey, I'm gonna wait until I get a very big following, and then I'll cancel myself on purpose. Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, yeah. Anyway, though, so yeah, okay, so do you have the milk and bags at your house, or are you one of those normal people that's just like, hey, what the hell is this?
Milk and bags.
It must be. It's a part of some parts of Canada do that.
Interesting. Not us.
Okay, good. Okay, so Saskatchewan, out of all places, is the normal part of Canada. I guess I would have never guessed that, but kind of, yeah. Yeah. So I guess there's that. But I mean, when we're talking about post show, I mean, most people do not understand that look that you present on stage is not sustainable. You're not going to be able to look like that 365 days a year, and that's a big shock for so many people. But what was that like for you when you first realized that, like, hey, this look that I've presented on stage, it's not sustainable? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career's gone on?
Oh, you know what? Absolutely. Like that first part when like that first section of weight gain, it was like when that starts coming back, it hits you pretty hard. You're just like, oh, damn it. Like, you feel so good, you look so good, and then you start looking in the mirror, you're like, oh, things are starting to kind of disappear, they're starting to fade, and you're just like, oh man, this sucks. But then as you go, you really just have to, it comes down to why you do it then. Because if you're just wanting to look good all year round and you just want to look good for yourself and whatever, then maybe competing isn't for you. Because in order to progress and in order to succeed, you have to get better. And when it comes down to getting better, you have to eat, you have to train, you have to eat for your training, which in the off season, you're eating in a surplus. You do not want to be in a deficit whatsoever because you're trying to grow and you're trying to improve. It's your improvement season. So the food gets amped up and therefore you get softer and your shapes start to disappear. And that's just, it's something that you have to accept being in sport. If you can't accept it, I wouldn't recommend bodybuilding or not bodybuilding, but competing to that extent, because when it's two different extremes. It's like you're shredded dice to the bone, your vein, there's not one vein hiding on your body, and then you go and you're like, okay, now I gotta grow, and it's like everything's hiding.
That's the most mystifying thing to me, is just how the body changes so much in even that little amount of time. Like, we're talking weeks after a show where you're just like, okay, you don't even look anything near what you were at right now. But
Yeah.
I mean, well, now getting into, just sort of, I like to talk a little bit about the family thing. What was your family and friends reaction like when you announced them, like, hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try?
Oh, the beginning it was a little rough. It was like, why would you want to do that? Like, that's not very feminine. That doesn't look very ladylike. And there was banter back and forth and stuff like that from family and friends. But as I progressed and as I kept going and I stuck with it, there was a lot more admiration, and it was full around positivity. Like hearing my mom and my sister in the stands when I was, or in the audience when I was on stage, it was like almost bringing a tear to my eyes. It was like, man, like those are my people. And it was just like my family and friends were so supportive. My gym was so supportive. I was with my gym, who like I call them my second set of parents. They started up in 2014, or no, sorry, 2018, I think is what it was. Anyway, I was there the day it opened. I stayed there and got to know the people, and it all just became a really small, like a circle. And everybody was super supportive. When it came down to really getting into like the final weeks of the show, it was like people were letting up equipment. They're like, "Hey, Meg, like, do you need this? Like, you need the stair? When you need the stairmaster? Like you need me to hold stuff." And it was awesome. It was just full on support. In the beginning, yeah, it was a little rocky.
I mean, I've not met one person whose family was just like, "Oh my god, that's awesome. Let's all just do like at the very get-go and just being like, my dreams of my child have finally been realized now that they're a bodybuilder now." So, no, that's that. I mean, and that's great that they've been, learning it. And that's why I find with a lot of people is that, yeah, once you first go to a couple shows, then you realize that like, hey, there's more to it than just, like being a beauty pageant, which is what a lot of people think of it. And it's like, hey, there's a lot more to it than that. But I mean, I always like to talk about also just the general public as well, because I mean, you're not the average looking woman. Walking out in public, especially as you get closer to your show, even at any point of your process, I mean, you're gonna get stares. I sort of like to compare it to being like a mini celebrity. Now, luckily, us living in the northern part of North America, where you can be sort of bottled up a little bit for a good 4 or 5 months out of the year. But what has that been like for you to sort of dealing with that reaction that you get, and has it gotten easier for you to deal with it as you've gotten more used to it?
Oh yeah, in the beginning it was like, oh, like this is weird. Like I don't understand. Like I'm very, I never did it for like the looks into to this point. I was never like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna get shredded and just show off. I was gonna like,
That wasn't your game plan from day
no,
one.
no, it wasn't.
I'm doing
And
it just for validation from other
yeah,
people.
I'm doing it just for the likes on Instagram. Like
Yeah.
that's it.
Yep.
No, it was like I was like, "Hey, like why like what are you staring at? Like what do you want?" And it was stuff like what's going on? And I was just like, "Oh, hold on a sec." I was like, "Right, okay, this makes sense." So when it got down to, girls being like, "Oh, like that's gross," or like, "Oh, like I got the word gross a couple times, and I pride myself on that word. I love that word. It's like I want to be friggin' disgusting if that's what that means. But anyway, no, I would, but then as I got comfortable with it, I started being kind of like I was playing around with people. Like I was like, you know what? I was like, like this right here is what makes you feel uncomfortable. Oh, I'm gonna show you what I got in my tank top, or like with the tank top on right now. I had my
I mean, you'll go to jail, but
yeah, like I was messing with people, and I was like, you know what? Oh, like I'll be like, oh, the beach is that way, like whatever. It was stuff like
oh, Megan's flashing people again. Everyone, yeah, call the
no, it
cops.
wasn't practical. No, more so like taking the hood
No, no,
off.
I know, I know, I
I
know.
got my T-shirt to
Yeah.
be like, yeah, this is whatever. The best, the best one was when there was a security guard that was like, like, do you bounce? And I was like, I do actually. Like, I have bounced and whatever, and I got offered jobs. Like, I was getting offered jobs. It was funny. It was good.
Can I say this entire podcast I've done, I've had over 400 bodybuilders on this podcast, and the greatest insult I have ever heard in my entire life was a woman from the UK who was walking down the street, and a man came up to her and told her, "You're an embarrassment to look at." That is the greatest insult I've ever heard in my entire life. I've been waiting to say that to someone, and I haven't said it yet, because that is my, like, if I ever get into a big argument with someone, like, that is my nuclear bomb that I unleash at the end. You're an embarrassment to look at. Like, that cuts so deep. That just, yeah, like, see, it blew my mind when I first, I was like, wait, you can say something that savage? And, like, I'd never heard anyone say that ever before. You're an embarrassment to look at. Like, like, yeah, so that is what that that's a good one, from deep down. But I also love to talk cardio on this podcast because I hate it more than life itself. And when I say cardio, I mean actual running. I can walk for forever and get done with that. But what is your relationship like with cardio? Because unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you sort of sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio.
Oh, you do. Yeah, 100% you do. First of all, I don't run. Running, no. Running is no. There's a big no actually, and it's not only just because I hate it. It's because my coach actually he does not recommend it for bodybuilders and that type of choice or that choice of cardio. But anyway, so for me, the rule is the harder the better. So I am a stairmaster. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That is the only cardio I will do. I find that the bike will mess up my knees a little bit, so I'm just like, "Okay, stay away from that." Walking, I find like, oh, the days where I'm like, "Oh, I can just walk on the treadmill today." It's like, "Oh no, you're getting into that mentality." It's like, "Oh, it's easier, but it's still cardio, so you're gonna walk on the treadmill." Nope, to the stairs you go. So stairs, that's it. That's all I do.
So I was just thinking about you running with the big glutes and everything. And I'm just gonna ask you, please tell me as a kid, someone called you thunder thighs at least once.
Oh man, that's minor. That's like
No, 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 no. I'm just saying because I just hearing those two words together always just makes me laugh. No matter what, whenever someone says thunder thighs, I just laugh. No matter what. And I was just thinking about you running on a treadmill, and I was like, okay, someone has to have said that to her.
oh, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like it's so uncomfortable. You can't. No, it just feeling like literally everything. No, it's terrible.
I always just think about that Family Guy episode where Peter just calls Meg Thunder Thighs as she's walking down the street, basically, or something like that. And I was like, okay, that's the greatest. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I love that
yeah. No, so
episode.
yeah, that is awesome. And I mean, sleep is another thing that is not talked about at all, and it's the most important thing in any lifestyle. I don't care if you live a life of crime. Sleep is the most important thing in that lifestyle. But I mean, anyone that tells me otherwise, I always tell them go pull an all nighter, then go and try to work out and tell me how that works for you. What does your sleep schedule look like now? Because I mean, being a bodybuilder, when you go from prep to off season, I mean, your sleep schedule becomes so bipolar.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it does. I find very often when I'm in prep, I sleep a lot less. Like it's like your body doesn't want to sleep, just wants to go, 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 go. And yeah, I found myself this last prep. I had to force myself to sleep. There was nights where I would pop oh, what is that freaking thing called?
Xanax,
Nope, not a Xanax. What is it
cocaine,
called? I can't remember. But anyway, you pop one of those. You pop one of
crocodile.
those. Just try. No, it's one you get up right off the
Just so everyone knows, crocodile is literally a drug that you take that's so addictive that it turns your skin into scalies, so you end up looking like a crocodile. It's worse than heroin.
wild. Okay, definitely not that.
She just did heroin, everyone, not crocodile. Okay.
Yeah, no. Anyways, yeah,
Melatonin,
I would fight. Yes, that's the one.
the
Melatonin.
stuff that
Thank
I
you.
have right here.
That's the one. Melatonin. Pop one of those, and then just you try really hard to wind down. But yeah, no, they got to the point where I really neglected sleep, and I was like, "Kate, that can't happen anymore." So what I actually started to do was at my breaks at work, I'd power down for a nap for 20-ish minutes, and I would sleep on my lunch, and I would sleep like I would sleep, and I'd set an alarm, I'd sleep. So there was one time I was right smack dab middle of prep, or no, not middle, towards the end, 3 weeks out, and I was on my lunch break, and it was plus. I remember it was plus 33. That's degrees Celsius, and I was like, man, I need a nap so bad. So and it was too loud in the lunchroom. So what I did is I actually packed up. I packed a blanket and a pillow, and I went to my car and I napped for the entire hour. And I remember like people being concerned, like Meg, like it's plus 33 out. Like, are you not? And I was comfortable. Like it was, and I'd sleep on my lunch. Yeah.
I'm just gonna pretend that I know what plus 33 Celsius means, everyone, because whatever, whatever,
I know it's hot.
whatever. Hot, I guess. Yeah, whatever. I don't know.
Especially for up here, it's
Yeah.
hot.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. That's why I always find it funny, like especially talking about weather, especially there's a lot of Canadians on Twitter when they're just like, oh my god, it's negative like 17 degrees outside. And I was like, oh wow, that's cold. And they're like, oh, it's Celsius, and I look it up and it's like -5, like in Fahrenheit. And I'm like, okay, calm down, Canadians. Calm down, calm down. So
Relax.
no. See, I'm a drug addict because I take two of these things instead of one, okay? I like to party hard. So, I gotta have my two melatonin, instead of one. But I mean, if you could change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Megan, we made a decision, you can change one thing and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh, yikes. That is a tough question. I don't know what I would like to see changed. I oh, that's tough. I don't know.
I
I
can give you mine while you're thinking.
yeah, yeah.
Well, first of all, prize money. It's like what the hell are you? I mean, it's
That
like
is where my mind went immediately was
yeah.
the prize money for like the big guys like Olympia and even in general, like for pro shows. Like
Well, my thing is, if you're a pro in this sport, you should not have to have a day job. Like that should be. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
it is a job.
Oh, I mean, it is a job. Yeah, exactly. So it's like you shouldn't have to have a day job then, really, of just other work. Like you should be just focusing on body. If you're a pro, and you should be able to be financially supported that way because, yeah, I mean, so I have some pros on that work like 2-3 jobs a day, and it's like, first of all, you're psychotic because how you're able to function and do that. But second of all, it's like that should not happen. That too, that and the judging too, where it's like just like with any sport, there can be human error, and it's like, oh, we want a little bit more of a fuller look. Oh, we want a little more of a toned look. And then it's like,
Yeah,
well, good luck figuring out which one is which most of the time.
yeah, yeah.
There's a
For
lot of
sure.
that too. That, and I do wish that they would give it a lot more exposure, especially the female body, because like they used to have that on ESPN like 20
Mhm.
years ago, and now they have cornhole, which
Yeah.
as much athletic domination it takes to be in the sport of cornhole, I might take bodybuilding a little bit harder than cornhole. I don't know though.
Yeah, I think I agree like 100% with both those points. The exposure being one, it's like it's the probably the most underrated sport ever. It's got to be like
I mean, lingerie football league's up there, but that's just.
I,
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, yeah, yeah. That well, I will say, like actual wrestling, like wrestling is another one that I put up there too as well. Like the guys that basically, oh yeah, I gotta lose 20 pounds in 2 days, so I'm just gonna basically just live in a sauna.
yeah, pretty
Yeah, yeah,
much.
yeah. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, that exposure is ridiculous. They need more of it. Which, I mean, it is getting. I think like Instagram opened things up and it changed a lot of things where a lot more people are more aware of it now. But like, still, there needs to be a lot more of it too. And I mean, if someone were to also walk up to you and say, Megan, I'm thinking about just getting into bodybuilding myself, what would be the best piece of advice that you'd give for them?
Oh yeah, I get this a lot actually. I've got a few clients actually, and I get the question quite a bit. Um, what I guess one of the first things that I try to just drill into the head is that you gotta like you have to pay close attention to what you put in your body and how you train it. Like it's pretty much the whole dynamic of bodybuilding is it and it's important. Like it's important if you have a really bad relationship with food. It's important if you don't know how to train certain body parts properly. It's all important and it all needs to be assessed and just you got to dive into it. You got to do the hard stuff. Like it's not easy and it was never meant to be easy. And you have to just yeah, like that's probably the biggest thing was like we have to first dissect that and figure out where you're at and where to go from there.
There's so much more of a science in this sport than people understand, where it's down to the minutia where it's like you're training a part of your body, like you're training a part of your body part really to get it to
Yeah.
grow. We're just like you just get so down to it that a lot of people, yeah, they don't really understand that as well. And what would you say is probably the biggest misconception that you get as a bodybuilder just by the general public?
Oh, that were roid heads or that were dumb. Like I work a government job and it's like, oh, like I'll go post something on Instagram or I'll
Megan, go lift now,
yeah,
basically, is what they think.
yeah, exactly like okay, or I've had comments like I could be a bit of a keyboard warrior sometimes. Just for this
Oh,
for fun,
oh,
fun kind of
I have so much fun doing that. If I'm
yeah,
ever
exactly.
if I'm ever bored on a weeknight, yeah, I'll spend 30 minutes just going, yeah,
Yeah,
just
you
yeah,
got
yeah, exactly.
and some of the comments are like, oh, okay, like you go pump your head more or full or like full of steroids or something like that, or some or the steroids are getting to your head. That's what it is. Steroids are getting to your head, whatever, and they'll comment how dumb I am or something. I'm just like, okay, like if people only knew like anything about what I do, like or what I am, like it's like that's probably the biggest thing is like people just think like, oh, you're a roid monkey or you're, a rat, gym rat. It's a big one, but yeah, it's
I have met a couple of roid monkeys on this podcast, but she is not one of them. Everyone, okay? Let's be completely honest here. Like again, like the 1%ers, yeah, I'd say 1% of the bodybuilders like literally fit that stereotype 100%, but it's not the majority at all.
no.
And when I meet one of those roid heads, I was like, you don't realize how much damage you do to everyone else that tries to live this by literally just being the guy that just all he does is just grunts and lifts weights his entire life. That's all he does. He functions nothing else in his life. That's all he is. Yeah.
Exactly.
He's like basically just he just drinks protein powder all day, and that's
Yeah,
that's all he does. He doesn't even drink it; he just eats it
Ronnie
raw.
Coleman say lightweight,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah. Well, even Ronnie Coleman, yeah. People don't realize how intelligent he is but that's again, and the thing with bodybuilding too that I found out is that like they're some of the nicest people on the planet once you really get to know them and meet them, and that's another thing too. Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, I mean, just the whole steroids thing, and it's like, well, there are curlers in the Olympics that are going to test positive for steroids. Everyone, so just
Dang right.
like that Russian figure skater who's 15 years old that tested positive, and it's
Yeah.
like for figure skating, everyone.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
That's,
it's ridiculous, but yeah, and Megan, I always like to ask before we wrap things up. Now, do you have anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
oh, geez. Pretty much just big shout out to all my friends and family and my everybody that follows me on Instagram or whatever. I've deleted Facebook, but Yeah.
Okay. No, so I was gonna ask you about that too. So I saw today we got her the day that she deleted Facebook. What was that? Because I've always wanted to do that because I check my Facebook probably like once a month just to see who got pregnant or who got married from like high school,
Yeah.
really, or college, really. That's like the only purpose of it for me. So what was the reasoning behind that, and how do you feel now that you finally purged yourself?
Oh man, just I don't know, like the whole world knows, and the country's in a mess. And there's been a lot of division up here, which is breaks my heart. It's super sad, and it's
Well, we want to
depressing.
talk about division. You're talking to an American. I just want to remind you of that.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. So
So
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's Canada on steroids basically when it comes to
right,
division. So
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, and it was just a lot of friends that were going at each other, and it got ugly. And I was like, you know what? Like, especially being in prep right now too, you don't need any toxicity, anything just clouding your mind and doing that kind of thing. So I was like, you know what? I've got, I don't know, I've got a zero tolerance for a lot of stuff. Like, I'm just like, I could drop something in the snap of a finger. I posted a Facebook status, was like, peace, I'm out. And it was deleted that day, that minute. And I feel awesome. I feel like I lost weight. Like,
I mean, I've told this to my parents so many times, like, you don't realize how lucky you are that you grew up when you grew up, when as opposed to like now, where
right?
and the thing is, like, let's be honest, I'm just like the masses. I'm just so addicted that I couldn't really give it up. Like, it would have to be something like that, where like I just have a bunch of friends and I'd be like, okay, these guys are idiots. I got to delete it. Like, I barely check Facebook at all. Where it's like I'm just basically Instagram and Snapchat is really my generation anyway. So but like it's like it gets to a certain point where you're just like, I wonder, like, because I'm young enough to remember what life is like before cell phones. Like, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was like in 7th or 8th grade, and it was one of those flip phones, basically, everyone. So
Yep. Same. Yep.
like I'm young enough to remember what life was like, but like I'm starting to forget really what it was like, really kind of like where I'm just like I want to kind of go back to that where it's like, yeah. So I encourage people to do that if you really want to, and I who knows, one of these days. The only problem is that I start a podcast where I have to sort of use
Oh
social
yeah,
media
you
to do,
gotta. And you know what? It's
yeah.
a huge thing too. Like, it's a platform. It's how people are glued to their phones. It's how people are gonna grow business. It's how you're gonna grow as an athlete. It's how you're gonna grow as a promoter. It's how you're gonna grow really in occupation. Like, in so many things. Like, it's what you basically have to do now in order to succeed really well. So that's just, it's one of those things. And but like, my platform is on Instagram anyway, so it's like Facebook is pretty much useless to me other than friends and family. But even then, some of the friends, I was just like, hey, I literally can't. It even hurts me to look in that direction anymore. And then, family, it's like, yeah, well, I got all your guys' phone numbers, so
Well, as we're wrapping up, everyone, I did pull up her Instagram page, and yeah, everyone, I confused this for a power lifter, everyone. So my mistake, everyone. Like I've said before, I thought that I'm gonna release it on the blooper reel. Why I introduce her as a power lifter. I'm gonna re-record it after we're done here talking now, so I'll fix it for the original version. But yeah, I called her a power lifter because I have another Megan coming on tomorrow, also from Canada, and for my excuse, everyone, I get off work at 7 and this podcast is at 7:30, so I'm dead right now. Like, let's be honest. Like, I'm running on absolute fumes right now. So, so again, I apologize to her for that. But again, Megan, it was just so great to have you on and talk to you. And going into this, prep now, what's one body part that you hope that you've improved on the most?
oh, my back, no questions
Oh, so
asked.
you want to do an even bigger lat pump, basically?
Huge. Was.
All right. Well, yeah, that's awesome. And like I said, next time we'll have to get her to do that then, because that's like, I've never heard of anyone ever say that. But again, you guys, go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below, and buyer beware. You will get inspired to get in shape and, get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, you guys, Megan, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute delight to talk to you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Glad we could do it.
Well, all right, everyone. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
See ya.